Washington right now. I'll wait. Everybody take a seat. Respect your neighbors. As Kerry Washington would say, I'll wait. If you can hear me, put your hand up. You can hear me, put your hand up. Settle down. Okay. Okay, Kerry Washington. Taught me a lot. So, thank you everybody for coming. I want to have a conversation today that's inspired by a series that my company has on YouTube. So my company's called Simpson Street, after the name of the street that my mother grew up on. And we have a series called Street You Grew Up On, where I interview other people about the street that they grew up on. But everybody always says, like, when are you going to talk about the street that you grew up on? Which is right over here, Pugsley Avenue. And so, I wanted to do that here today because I have this new book coming out, and the whole beginning of the book takes place on the street that I grew up on. Obviously, that's my once upon a time. And so I wanted to have that conversation with my sister, my friend, the amazing Tarana, because this woman, if you have not read her book, it is tremendous, tremendous. This woman is a hero. She's one of my heroes and my role model, and I love her very much, and she's a Bronx girl.
Yeah.
Woman. Oprah said to me, don't be an aging female, be a woman. So here we are. So I'm so excited to talk to you about the street that I grew up on.
Yes, and I'm so excited to be back home.
Yes! Put me down.
One time for BS. All right, we're going to jump right into it.
Okay. Tarana's interview is in season 1 of Street You Grew Up On too, so you can hear all about her street and all.
Watching in St. Lawrence.
Hey!
All right. So you always start the show with a question.
Yes.
And I'm going to remix that question for this show.
A lot of kids in the
A
audience.
lot of kids in the audience. So tell us what you're in honor of the 50th anniversary of hip hop.
Yeah.
And the Bronx.
The boogie down.
Boogie down. Tell us what your MC name would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using the name of your first pimp
Yeah.
and the street you grew up on.
So my MC name would be Tricking Street Pugsley. I don't know who's giving that girl a record deal.
Wait, MC what?
MC Trick or Treat Pugsley.
MC Trick or Treat
So
Pugsley.
Trick or Treat were hamsters that I had in our apartment 12D, building 4, and Pugsley Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. MC Trick or Treat Pugsley. Okay. We might buy that single.
Maybe. Maybe a collab.
What, you know, you write so vividly about the streets you grew up on, Pugsley, you know, and in your book, Thicker Than Water, coming out Tuesday. For those who haven't read it, talk to us about what it was like. What did it sound like? What did it smell like? What did it feel like?
So the sounds I remember the most were summertime sounds on Pugsley Avenue because of our pool. We have a pool at Jamie Towers, and yes, the Jamie Towers pool. And so I remember the sounds of splashing, kids playing. The best sound was when you could hear the ice cream truck roll down on Randall or Seward, and we would run out, but you would hope that the ice cream truck would come in adult swim so that you wouldn't miss regular swim time. And I remember the sound, like back then, Hot 97 had just started, and it was all freestyle music.
That's right.
So I remember like Hot 97 playing from the boombox in the pool.
Yes. Those, you know, one of the things that I so appreciate about your book is how Bronx it is.
Yeah.
And I think other people will appreciate it because they get a really intimate look of who you know, look at who you are, because you're so private and you've been, you know, I think private throughout your career. But the book really is a delve into your life. But for those of us who are from New York and from this area, you really, really, really articulate what it is to be from this area, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
But let's talk about the actual house you live in.
Yeah.
Because you are a Caribbean girl.
I am. My mother's parents were Jamaican.
Yes.
So it's a Caribbean household.
That's right. And those of us, I'm also from Caribbean family, St. Kitts, and also from the South, but grew up very Caribbean.
Yeah.
So for my babies. So talk to me about the house you lived in, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was that dynamic like?
So we had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom.
We might have to get Miss Vivian back in the house for a second, y'all. Y'all might have to pay attention.
Miss Valerie.
Valerie,
Yeah.
sorry. So I ran an after-school program too, so I might have to say, y'all have to put a bubble in it. Okay.
So we had 2 bedrooms in the apartment and a bathroom, and one of my favorite things about our apartment growing up was that we had a terrace that looked out onto the pool, but also looked all the way to the Whitestone Bridge. You can see, so we can see Castle Hill Project and the Whitestone kind of over by where the Y is over there, and it was a great, I remember we're sort of in the flight path of LaGuardia, so we always had planes really close and low flying over the building. And I was a latchkey kid some of the years, so I spent a lot of time like with my parents' stereo system, playing CDs, and doing like private concerts in my living room, like I was singing into a hairbrush. And yeah, it was really, the apartment was very like warm, you know? It was very, very warm. My parents always, I don't think I write about this in the book, but my parents always had African art. I had a friend who did a lot of travel to Africa, and there was like beautiful African sculpture in my home and paintings. There was also this like sense of beauty about who we are. And Caribbean painters too, like as I got older, Haitian artists, and so it's always a sense of like we are beautiful people, Black and brown people are beautiful people, and we create beautiful things.
Yeah.
And we always had Essence magazine too, right? So that was also like out in the world, maybe there was only a certain kind of girl who was on the cover of magazines, but in our home, we were on magazines too.
Yeah.
It also was meaningful.
Yes. So one of the things that struck me, you know, I've known you for a few years now, but again, you've been very private in your life. You were very revealing in this book about the interior of your life, particularly as a child, growing up, like what it was like to grow up. I really appreciated not only just because, you know, we love you and we want to know more about you, but because you're from the Bronx, there's a very particular way that people think about people from the Bronx and what we're supposed to be like. And I appreciated that you showed us that there is also girls from the Bronx. There is the smart girl from the Bronx. That is
a lot of smart girls.
It is also very typical to be a smart girl from the Bronx who works hard, has parents who work hard and, you know, raise them up, go to work every day, and it's not an atypical thing. It is a very
exceptional.
It's not. It doesn't have to be an exceptional thing.
Yeah.
I'm very much related to being the girl who goes to school, does well, tries to get on all the programs, goes to places like Kips, right?
Yeah.
You have parents who put you in the program.
Yeah.
It's always trying to
invested in you.
And it's invested in you. That's something that people don't. We have. This Kips has been around forever.
Forever.
And has had so many success stories come out of it. So I appreciated that you talked about that. What was your family's reaction to reading the book?
So it's been interesting. It's like, you know, this book is definitely, for me, my opportunity to tell my story. And, you know, my parents, I mean, if you ask my dad, he'll say, like, it's not the book I would have written. But also, he's been so supportive. My parents are and have been, my whole life, so supportive. From sending me to a place like Kips Bay to today, like being so loving about me telling my story in this way. And I'm really grateful. I would not have the book out here in the world without their blessing. So it's true, I have been so private about my marriage and my children, and you know, my husband, I have my husband's blessing to be telling the stories that we're telling, but also my parents, very early on, I had them read it and wanted to make sure that they were okay. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Kips Bay, we're here today at grew up coming here, right?
Yeah.
Some of the lessons that you learned here, coming here at a young age that you keep with you today.
Well, you know, it's funny because a lot of my book is about telling the truth, but I was laughing with you before I came out here. Sometimes, for a good reason, you might fudge the truth a little bit. For example, when I came to Kips at first, you had to be 6 years old to be at the club, and I might have been 5. And my mom was like, if anybody asks you, you are 6 years old. And then, don't you know, this summer, I found myself in the same position. My daughter was going to summer camp, and you had to be 10 years old, and she's 9. And I was like, don't tell anybody if you're single digits. So, you know, it's a family legacy. For the right reason, sometimes you gotta, you know, do what you gotta do.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
But I loved Kips Bay. I mean, this place is really, I learned so much about what I do today on this stage. On this very stage. We had an incredible director, choreographer, Larry Maldonado. And Larry was like everybody's godfather, everybody's uncle, everybody's big brother. Larry taught us how to take up space, how to move our bodies, how to be in relationship, how to be in community. Larry was like, and Larry gave me one of my most important lessons. We had a big dance number to a big Lionel Richie number. We used to have a show called Broadway Babies. And I was giving us like a solo, it was a duet with me and another boy. And I was on this side, he was on this side. There's a whole, my little moment in the dance. Somebody here knows that we were doing it the last time I was here. And then, because Larry had a lot on his mind, he was running this whole program. The next day he came in and he gave my part to another girl. And I was devastated. But I didn't say I'm devastated, I just was like pouting in the corner. And Larry said, come here, talk to me, what's going on with you today? Even that was the lesson, right? Because he was paying attention to us. And I said, nothing. He said, don't tell me nothing, tell me the truth, what's going on with you? And I was like, oh, yesterday you gave me that. He was like, oh, I forgot. He said, let me tell you something, and I will never forget it. When you want something, you speak up. Speak up and tell people what's yours. That's how you will get what's yours in life. And I have never forgotten that.
That's right. That's right. You know what? That's so beautiful. And I think, I want to come back to the Bronx for a second, because that reminds me of, I think we often get accused in the world, people from New York and people from the Bronx, of being aggressive and abrasive and whatever. But I think one of the things that we learn in places like this and growing up in a borough like this in the city is that we have to take what we want or go after what we want.
Yes.
We also learn to take what we have to make what we need.
Yes. To me, you just described hip-hop, right? You pick up borrow, you take away kids' instruments, we will turn a record player into an instrument.
That's right.
We'll create a whole culture and a music out of street lamps and spray paint
Take away
and
the
record players.
programs,
Yes.
take away the resources, we take what we have to make what we need. And I think that, you know, the Bronx is sort of a third character in your book.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a background character. I wanted that to be the same in my book. It was like a background, right?
It's like the weather.
Listen, people know me. I call myself a Bronx nationalist. I'm a Bronx supremacist.
Yes.
You can't go anywhere and say anything disparaging about where I live. I'm also critical of the things in the Bronx as necessary, but you know, so many beautiful things come out of this place. Talk to me about repping this borough, right? Talk to me about what it means to you to be from this beautiful, beautiful place that people try to make seem like it's not beautiful.
Yeah, I think I'm so proud to be from the Bronx. I'm so proud of all of the cultures that we have here. I'm so proud that in some ways we tend to be like the misunderstood and forgotten borough, but like every underdog, we always rise. And I think there's also this like love. Whenever a person from the Bronx meets somebody else from the Bronx, there's so much love. And I'm really proud to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, when I met Friday at one of the most elite situations in Fashion Week.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God, you're from the Bronx, right? You know, if you've seen her, the fancy gown, and she was like, give me a hug. And she's really little.
Yeah.
And we had this whole moment, and I was like, every time. And I think when we first met,
Same. Yeah, same. Immediately. this teacher that I told you about, Larry Maldonado, he got very ill. And when he was spending a lot of time in the hospital, there was a young woman who used to step in and substitute teach his classes, and her name was Jennifer Lopez. And Jennifer has always been incredibly supportive of me, has always treated me like family, has always claimed me as a Bronx cousin.
Same.
So beautiful.
Don't even get me started about her fame.
Yeah.
Like that's my fame.
Yeah.
Fame. So let's switch to topics. I'm trying so hard, y'all. This book is really good. It's really good.
We don't want to spoil the book for you. We're not trying to give you too many details.
I'm trying to be a little surface, but y'all gonna read this book. You're going to read this book. So if you could go back in time, and have a conversation with young Kerry, what would be key pieces of advice or wisdom that you would share with her? Okay, come on, is it under control?
So I think if I could go back and give like little Kerry any advice, it would be to not be afraid to ask for help. That doing it alone, that self-resilience, self-reliance. Resilience is important, but self-reliance is not the goal. You don't have to do it all on your own. But it's okay to say, like, I need some help. I would have wanted her to know that sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you could take anything from the street you grew up in and bring it into your life today, what would it be?
If I could take anything from the street that I grew up on and bring it into my life today, it would probably be those summertime afternoons at the pool. It would be the joy of that moment when Adult Swim was over and you got picked as like the one kid who got to dive in before any of the other kids to put the rope back in the water that divided the deep end from the shallow end. And you were, at that moment, you were like the one kid alone in adult water. And everybody else was jealous because you got more swim time. I think that moment of joy was what I would want to bring back. And you know what, and my family, like being able to see, that was the other thing, is like we'd go down to the pool and my cousins would be there and my aunts and uncles would be there and neighbors and friends, and just like to have proximity to the people that I love all day long.
I feel some kind of way because I was in Bronx then.
And you didn't come to our pool?
We didn't come to this pool, and they closed our pool on the outside a long time ago.
Yeah.
We didn't get to come to the pool down here. I was talking about that.
Yeah. It's a llama dynamic.
Exactly. Okay, I know we have to wrap soon, but I would have a few more questions. Well, you know, you have a very storied career at this point.
Yeah.
You know, from our song, which I was obsessed with, by the way, for a little bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, y'all remember our song? Yeah. That scene when she's running? But as an actor, producer, advocate, and a friend, you sometimes, you are someone who really values and champions people to step into the spotlight and put themselves at the center of their own story. To be the lead of their once upon a time. So I want to know, if Thicker Than Water had started with Once Upon a Time, how would the rest of the Tell Us Your Once Upon a Time story? What would your Once Upon a Time be?
Yeah, what would be the rest of that sentence?
Yeah.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl who was very loved and prayed for, who was born into a family filled with laughter and love and swimming. And she learned to swim in the deep end.
Water.
Everywhere.
Water. We're going to stay away from water. Water is a theme throughout the book. It is.
Yeah.
Y'all have to read the book. Water is a key theme throughout the book, you know? The cover is so beautiful.
Thank you.
The cover is really beautiful.
The cover is a painting. It's a painting of it's a hyper-realistic painting of a photograph.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's actually me floating on my back, looking up at the surface of the water, and it was my daughter's idea, my 9-year-old, to flip it so that it could be like a mirror.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I thought the cover was so beautiful. I just, because you talk about swimming and your memories at the pool, is there like a core memory that you could share with us about water without revealing too much of the book?
Yeah, so there is a story, it's one of my favorite stories in the book. In addition to the pool in our neighborhood, my parents also had a cabin in upstate New York, and there was a lake there. And one of my favorite stories in the book is the first time that my dad and I swam across the lake without telling anybody. Let me tell you, my mother was pissed. She was so mad. And it was such a fun day because it felt like we were doing the impossible together, like we were breaking all the rules. So that's one of my favorite stories in the book. Yeah.
Get the book, y'all.
And now we love swimming across the lake. But you have to be at least double digits to swim across the lake. You have to be at least 10.
Yeah, and you were, how old were you?
I was maybe just gonna be 10 soon.
Mama's like, I don't. You were not okay. So as readers begin thicker than water, as they will do very soon, what do you want them to keep in mind about you and your journey?
Well, I'm really excited for people to read the book. And I read the audio myself, as they do, yes.
So that. Just a quick question about that. Were you nervous to do it?
I was nervous to do it, and it was almost like reliving my whole life in a week. Because it took me a long time to write the book, but to have it to say the whole thing so quickly was so intense, and it felt good to get to the end. So I'm really excited for people to hear the audiobook. But I think what I want people to know is that we can do hard things, especially those of us from the Bronx, that we know how to go into hard places, we know how to survive, we know how to thrive, we have resilience, and that we're capable of doing the hard work of growing and evolving and freeing ourselves from the things that give us shame. And for that, I'm really grateful. And I hope that people feel invited on their own journey to shake off some of the things that they may feel give them shame.
You know what? I was going to ask you for words of encouragement, but I think those are it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You have written a beautiful book.
Thank you.
I think it is a gift for all of us. I think it will be a gift for all of you. And thank you. Thank you for coming home and sharing.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's so great to be here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
The road!
Yes.
Check, 1, 2, 1, 2, check, check.